Hello, and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers. This is episode 83 on ebayscavengers.com. I'm Ryan. I'm here with my partner, Jay, and we are talking about eBay stuff.
Okay, this is going to be me. I will lead the discussion here.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions recently that I think have really brought up a good topic, something that I was concerned about when I first started. One question was like, he said there was a bunch of sellers that made videos during the summer giving eBay tips, and they deleted all their videos because supposedly Goodwill started pricing their items higher because they saw that people were buying items from Goodwill and selling them. And then someone else had is mentioned recently about, I guess there's a new thrift store show on coming up soon.
What's it's with, I forget what it's called, but it's with Thrifting with the Boys, who are like eBay celebrities.
Right, so, if these shows go on TV, won't suddenly there be a run on Goodwill and other thrift stores because people see that you can sell, so they'll all go out and get it.
Right.
So these are all really good concerns. It was definitely a concern I had because, when we were deciding to really start putting time into eBay and it started to become more and more of our income, what if we quit our jobs, put all of our eggs in one basket, and then suddenly it's nothing to sell,
Right.
And also, what if, Goodwill and these other stores start to sell stuff for higher.
Price us out, basically.
Yeah. Or what if people, instead of donating, they see these videos on on YouTube, and they're realizing that people are selling the stuff that they donate, and they're like, well, I'll sell it myself.
Right.
Or what if we just stop having such a wasteful country, and people just stop donating because they don't buy so much, these are all...
I laugh at that one, but yeah.
So these are, I think, all the concerns I kind of sense when these questions come in.
So we kind of wanted to just sort of address those fears that we have. We have those fears too, and I'm sure other people do, especially when they're starting out, because...
Right. So number one, Goodwill. Goodwill is a place where everyone kind of starts, or where it's many people begin, because they're the big behemoth. I mean, there's all kinds of thrift stores out there, but there's I think there's 2,000 outlets in the country. I mean, every small town even has one. So number one is we've noticed that they've raised their prices over the past since 2008, and it's probably been beyond that. And I bet that they are realizing they can sell for more because people do buy and sell from them.
Right.
At some point, if they start getting too high, everyone will just stop buying from them. I mean, right now it's a very small part of our business, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think also, if it, like you said, gets too high, I mean, they really are competing with Walmart and Target and Marshalls and places like that, so,
And their quality has really become kind of like a plain
and just generic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they've actually had a website, like an eBay-like website, where they've been... where I guess they pull the nicer items and they actually sell that stuff online. It's at shopgoodwill.com.
Yeah, so it's like their own little eBay, basically.
So they've already been competing with eBay for a long time, and there's still stuff out there. So then the other concern is, well, what if everyone who donates saw these shows and decided just to sell their own stuff?
Right.
Never will happen.
Well, why? Why do you say that?
I mean, number one is, I bet I can see someone like my dad. He realizes oh, I've got all this junk, Why don't I get my son to sell the stuff, I mean, because...
Classic.
No one wants to sell the stuff themselves. They want someone else to do it for them. And then it just gets too complicated. I mean...
Right.
You really don't make enough. It's money with small amounts of stuff.
Right, like a trash bag full of stuff. I mean... The time and energy versus the amount of money for a small trash bag of stuff that you personally think is junk is, minimal.
In this past year, my dad actually sold his house, kind of the house that I had always unknown and moved to a much smaller place. And he said he took truckloads of stuff to Goodwill. It kind of made me cringe a little bit, but he had a bunch of junk anyway.
Yeah.
And for him, Goodwill was almost more just like a dump. I mean,
yeah, he was dumping it all.
Not that he was giving away bad stuff, but he just saw it as just like he was going to throw it away. And he just thought, well, if they can do something with it, that's fine, you know?
Well, and the great thing is, I mean, some seller is going to find great stuff. I mean, great stuff for them. I mean, I don't think we went through some of his house before he moved, but he lived kind of far away from us, so it's hard. But you know, someone's going to find something good in that. I mean, it wasn't all garbage, you know?
And so, you know, and people have been seeing all of these storage wars shows and thrift store shows.
And YouTube, I mean, YouTube videos, all that stuff.
For a long time. And so people get the concept, but people are just lazy. I mean,
they don't want to do the work.
It's not that they're lazy, just people have too much to do.
I mean, if they have another job, how many other people are going to be like, I'm going to quit my job and do eBay.
And plus, as I've always said, Americans are so generous. We're probably the most generous country in the world. And, you know, people just feel good to give their stuff away that they don't need.
Right.
Okay, so the other concern is that I've heard, and that goes through my head sometimes, well, what if Americans just stop buying so much stuff, you know? Like, what if they realize, like, I'm just buying stuff I don't need, and then I end up just throwing it all away or giving it to Goodwill. Why don't I just stop buying that stuff?
Right.
I mean, we've done that. Like, we don't buy...
Yeah, we do that.
I mean, we've never kind of been those kind of people, but that's because we've just been kind of poor. But
we don't have excess money to buy excess stuff.
But we also just don't like to buy stuff that we don't actually use. So what if people became like that, Ryan?
Okay. Well, I mean, it is a good question. I mean, I laugh, but, you know, we go to Europe, you know, and we see the way they are, and they are extremely thrifty, and you don't find stuff. I mean, you just don't find, I mean, they have thrift stores, whatever, but you don't find, like, the massive abundance that we have.
I think
here.
the answer is, as long as America stays a relatively affluent country, and I know we're going through a big time right now, but it's still a rich country. Just, it is built to buy. I mean, commercials on TV, you know, people seem programmed to buy stuff, you know? Right. And I don't know, until that changes, we
want that to change.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, what we're talking about would be like a sea change in this country. Right. Because the economy depends on people always buying.
Consumerism.
Black Friday.
Yep, it does.
So, I don't know. I feel like people are buying, and so they're going to have trash to give away.
I mean, if our country changed that much... I mean, I think that we would be having a very different conversation about what our, you know, income stream would be, because there isn't a waste stream anymore. I mean, that's a whole other podcast, imagining no waste stream.
And I mean, ultimately, I think that what we're all doing, getting stuff from thrift stores and selling it on eBay, is really, that thing has been around for a long time. What's changed is just like the marketplace, eBay, and, you know, its Goodwill hasn't been around for, I don't think, that long. But people have been buying and selling waste for, I don't know, hundreds of years. I mean, you know, this idea of like, there's always been auctions, people finding waste. There's a middleman, and then they sell to somebody new. So I feel like this is not something new that we've done that's going to die out. It's just, it just may change.
Right.
And, you know, really, at the end of the day, we all do provide a service. Like, what was that? We sold something recently I thought was garbage, but someone said it was like meant so much to them.
Yeah, I found this, and you guys will know what I'm talking about, if you're not Jay, because he had no idea. This Celestial Seasonings tea, it was a tin of the mandarin orange. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, you can picture it in your head. We always had it when I was a little kid. Like, I see the mandarin orange box, and I'm like, that reminds me of the 80s. You know, it reminds me of my mom, reminds me of the 80s. So I got this tin for nothing, and I sold it for $25 to this guy, and he said the same thing as me. He's like, I'm so glad you offered this to sell. It brings back so many memories. And I was like, that's what we did.
Yeah.
You know?
And so, those of us that sell kind of those vintagey kind of items, I mean, that's really what the power of eBay has been for a long time, is like, that's where you go when you want to find something that no one else will ever sell. Because, Walmart's never going to sell vintage items or whatever.
Right, used stuff. Well, that is the absolute beauty of eBay. Right. You're like, I remember this t-shirt I had when I was 5. I'm telling you, go to eBay, you'll find it.
Yep.
Search for a month, it'll pop up.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. So, we've talked about Goodwill a lot just because that's kind of like the thing everyone thinks about. But, there's so many outlets of places to buy. And, we always say, do not put all your eggs in one basket. Have multiple places to scavenge and have different places that you can go to at different times of the a year. So if yard sales and flea markets are really important to you and you live in a place that snows, those places are not going to be open during the winter time. So make sure that you have different places where you can go to. I mean, we go almost anywhere that sells items, you know?
Like in the summer and spring, we go out to the flea market and
widen it your search. I mean, we have a good 200 miles around us where we know everywhere around, it's where we can take a day trip and load up.
And the other thing too is, if you're feeling like you can't find stuff where you are, you're feeling tapped out, take a road trip. I mean, take a weekend trip somewhere in the next state over or whatever, and just check out we went to West Virginia one time, we're right on the border of West Virginia. We found this, oh my God, what was it? It was some Salvation Army or something. And we found it had not been shopped. Right. We found just every aisle. We were like, look at this, look at this. We filled up our whole back of our truck.
And we actually had 2 big baskets full of stuff, and they didn't care.
It cost almost nothing. It was amazing.
And plus it's always great to shop like that because then they start just throwing stuff in free.
For free. They're like, 10 cents, nothing, just take it.
But, I was worried for a while there about having a lack of inventory, and that's why we rent a storage place. I think it's like $50 a month because we had so much stuff. We didn't want to have it in our house anymore.
Took over our house.
So really, we have enough backlog of inventory where we don't have to buy anything for at least a year. And we could still list the amount we list now.
You really think it's a whole year? I mean, it's a good amount.
It's a good,
It is good. I agree. But we still shop all the time.
But, that... For me as a businessman, that makes me feel good that I never feel like there's going to be a gap, I
think just to segue into the next kind of issue is the reason why we can find so much stuff is because we have a variety of things that we sell. We're always trying to sort of go with the flow of stuff that you can find. If you're not finding shoes right now, try something else. Look for hats, look for scarves, look for books, whatever. There's always something cool around that you can source.
Right. And really, I think that for me, the bigger fear, and I see it when I go to Goodwill, is the lower and lower quality of items, where everything's being manufactured in China now and everything's kind of plasticky and cheap. And it really isn't worth reselling.
It's like, first of all, it's all worn out. And second of all, it's like $5 at Target or something.
I mean, these are things that were never expensive to begin with. So why would anyone pay more for it now? And I think I don't think we're quite at that point because there's still plenty of that older, good quality items, the vintage stuff that we find. There's plenty of that stuff. But I feel like... Who knows, in the next 20 years, what happens if, that stuff all gets shopped and, the people that own that...
Nobody buys that stuff anymore.
The people that own that stuff have all died out and that stuff has all been sold off,
we noticed that from 2008 till now at places like Goodwill, we used to find great shoes, great coats. Right. And just now I go into a Goodwill, I'm like, I see nothing, you know? So there is that fear there.
And, you know, like for us, I say we spend more on electronics than anything else just because we're kind of techie people. The unfortunate thing about electronic is that it doesn't have a shelf life.
Yeah,
like,
it's obsolete.
After 5 or 10 years, that stuff isn't worth anything. So I feel like, you know, especially us Generation X and younger, we're going to start to see just like piles of like electronic junk that isn't worth anything, you know,
because that's what people put their money into, not like well-made shoes,
right? And the last thing, and not to be, it's morbid, but if we're going to talk business, let's talk business. You know, a lot of this stuff does come from auctions and from estate sales, and I know that that's where we get a lot of our stuff, is when someone passes away and the family doesn't want the rest of the stuff that a person has spent a lifetime collecting. It gets auctioned off. And, you know, the baby boomers are a huge generation.
Yeah.
And over the next 10 years, 20 years, you know, it's like they're going to pass on to a better place. And, you know, they're going to have a lot of stuff to sell.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, that's the stuff that we buy is like grandma's estate. I mean, that's what we see.
So, you know, if you're a baby boomer, or if you're, you know, start giving your good stuff away so it doesn't end up in an auction, you know. if it means something to you, give it away so someone can, you know, really appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, so we love to hear in the comments at ebayscavengers.com if you have cool, weird places. Where did you go shop, or are you have a huge inventory? I mean, tell us what did you think,
or what are your tactics for when you see prices on things get higher, or you see, you know, you're running out of a certain inventory. Like, what do you switch to? You know, I definitely see myself doing that. If I can't find shoes, I'm just off to another section. You know, housewares.
And I think in bold text, just see it in your mind. Never worry, there will always be waste.
Just don't make any waste yourself.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.